Pastor Drew, we had a really good question from the congregation after the service this week, Sunday, talking about the 10 virgins trimming their lamps, and the question was, why couldn't the 5 who had maintained their lamps share with the other 5 when the other 5 said, please share with us?
Right.
Aren't we supposed to share and let our light shine and spread? Wouldn't that have been a good thing to have shared their oil with the 5 who had not trimmed their lamps? What do you say?
Yeah, I was caught a little bit by surprise with that question, but it's a good question, and it probably maybe reveals that I didn't clarify well enough in the sermon. But that aside, the person that came to me obviously was thinking about the oil in the bridesmaids' lamps as the gospel. And he made the argument that, we're called to share the gospel. And so why in this instance, in this very urgent case, would the 5 wise virgins not share with the 5 foolish virgins? And I think the misunderstanding there is that the oil does not represent the gospel. The oil represents our faith. And, I've said it in other contexts before. We need to make faith in Jesus Christ our own. And this is something that, the scriptures make very, very clear with regard to, just because you're a Jew, just because you're a descendant of Abraham, does not mean that you are necessarily part of the invisible covenant community. This can't be passed down from your parents in a transmittable way, just one heart to another. It can be passed down with regard to sharing the gospel and so on. But our faith needs to be our own. So, yeah.
Making our faith our own is maybe co-opted language sometimes. I got this question twice from within the congregation in the last week. One from a student and one from an adult. Both wrestling with election and said, do we accept Jesus? Do we ask Jesus into our heart? And the answer is, in a really technical sense, no. But I do always point out to people that even in the canons of Dort, which is where we
soteriology is laid out,
where we kind of plant our foot when it comes to election and salvation, it mentions accepting Christ. So even though we would say we can't invite Jesus in, it's not like Jesus got within 10 inches of salvation and all we need to do is invite him the rest of the way. But there is a point of acknowledgement where when Jesus has worked in us, we do accept that work. We do accept Jesus into our hearts, not because he needs our permission, but because that's the way true faith moves and works in us.
Yeah.
And true faith, I think, is what the lamps and the oil are getting at. It's not the gospel message, it's lived true faith.
Yeah.
So if you think about James,
faith without works.
There's faith, but then there's true faith. Mm-hmm. There's faith that just says, yeah, I believe in Jesus, and then no fruit, no implications downhill from there. I believe in Jesus, check the box, done with it. Yeah. And then there's true faith that is, I believe in Jesus in a true way that prompts me to love, joy, peace, patience, fruits of the Spirit, spiritual gifts, accepting Jesus into your heart, if you want to put it that way. And I think that's what the trimmed lamps represent.
Sure.
So both of us have the lamp, we have the light of, we acknowledge Christ, what have you, but only half of us in the parable, only 5 of us are actually working out the implications of that, keeping the oil, keeping the lamps trimmed, etc. And 5 of us have faith, but not true faith. And that's where you ended.
Right.
Not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. So let's be a church where
Yeah.
we all get
So,
well
yeah,
done.
I made a comment that it seems to be talking about the visible and invisible church, that in any given congregation, you're going to have true believers and you're going to have people that are kind of along for the ride. I think a better way, I think a good way to understand it, rather than getting too far into the works and the fruit, which is legitimate language, is the language that helps me is that some people profess to believe in Jesus Christ as a way to cover their bases. Okay, like this is I got this base covered, and other people have faith in Jesus Christ, which transforms their lives, which is where the fruit is going to be born, with transformed lives. And so,
Who's the theologian that has the 4 quadrants? If I believe and it's true, that's good. If I believe and it's not true, it's still good. You remember that guy?
I don't.
Someone can put it in the comments. We'll get one comment on one video.
I hope we learn, because that's the kind of thing that keeps me up at night.
Okay, sorry I
don't
interrupted
remember.
you. If you remember where you were.
No, that's okay. And so, the one of the ways that I stated it in the sermon, I believe, is that for the foolish virgins, as kind of a cover your bases sort of thing, it's like, yeah, I'll be a bridesmaid in your wedding. I want to be part of it. That would be really fun. But really, it was just a kind of another thing to do in life. And then for the 5 wise virgins or bridesmaids, it was like, this is the thing that I am looking forward to. This is the thing that is shaping my entire existence. And so I am going to do whatever it takes to be ready, because I can't wait for this to happen.
Yeah,
right?
That's really helpful. The other thing we talked about during the week that didn't make it into the service, but I found really compelling, and I've actually done some thinking about it, but it's maybe good it didn't make it into a sermon, because there's some guesswork here. I love the word perhaps, because if you start a sentence with perhaps, I can just say whatever I want.
Sure.
So just share about the note about the bride's family and the waiting and...
Yeah, so I did mention that in the sermon, that it was custom that when the wedding celebration was about to begin, the groom would actually go to the home of the bride's family in order to pick her up, in order to collect her. And so that was common practice. Everybody knew that was going to happen. But, the family, in kind of giving their blessing and sending their daughter off into the world, into marriage with this man, would show honor and reverence to their daughter by stalling the groom, by, keeping him talking for a long period of time. She's not ready yet. I don't want to let you go yet. And so the longer that a family, or the longer that parents could keep a groom waiting for his bride, the more respect and reverence they were giving her. And, let's face it, if the bride is the church, that speaks volumes. I didn't mention it in the sermon. I didn't make that clear connection and go down that road. But if the bride is the church, we kind of see, our value in God's eyes, that God is willing to wait for us, to be patient, to do whatever he needs to do in order to bring us into that union with him.
Yeah. That's how I had been thinking about it. So the parable mentions that the bridegroom is a long time in coming, which is why 5 of them, become unprepared.
Yeah.
But I've just been thinking about that passage. I think it's 1 Peter or 2 Peter. God is not slow in keeping his promises, as some think of slowness. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't say it this way, but he's slow because he wants all of his children to come to saving faith. And so I just wondered if you could read that into the parable there, that why is the bride taking a long time? Well, because she's being honored with this delaying of the bridegroom's return for the wedding feast.
Yeah.
And so this season of God's grand story that we live in, post-cross, post-Pentecost, but pre-consummation. There's wedding language for you. This is God showing honor to his church, that the purification that needs to happen, the increase in number that needs to happen, the falling away of apostates that needs to happen, right? We're purified and made whole in this waiting period in a strange way.